Hello, hello, everyone, and welcome back to Empower Your English.
Hi, everyone. Great to be here.
It's really fantastic to have you with us for another deep dive. Today, we're digging into something pretty inspiring, I think. It's the story of how one person, and a really young person at that, can actually, well, create huge change in the world.
Yeah, today we're focusing on Greta Thunberg, specifically her early activism. We've got some fascinating material looking at how those actions she took just grew and grew into this massive global movement. So our mission really is to understand those key moments, what happened, and maybe learn a bit about what made it all so powerful so quickly.
Okay, let's unpack this then.
Yeah.
Because the idea, a single teenager sparking a global movement, it almost sounds like unbelievable. Where did it even begin? What were the absolute first steps?
Well, what's really striking is that it started very personal with this deep concern she developed. She was about 8, maybe 9 years old when she first learned about climate change.
Only 8. Wow.
Yeah. And it hit her hard, really hard. She got incredibly worried, apparently stopped sleeping properly, stopped eating well.
Oh, wow.
She just couldn't grasp why the world wasn't doing something about this massive problem she was learning about. It was a very quiet reaction at first, very internal.
That level of anxiety, I suppose, at that age.
Yeah.
That's intense. And the material mentions, around age 11, things got even tougher for her.
Yes, that's right. At 11, she went through a really difficult time. She received several diagnoses: Asperger's, selective mutism, OCD, and an eating disorder, too.
Goodness.
And there was real concern, that she might not fully recover. She became very withdrawn. But then something shifted.
Yeah, this is the part I find incredible. She started to see her Asperger's not as like a deficit, but as she called it a superpower, didn't she?
Exactly. She felt it helped her see things differently, as she put it. Helped her cut through the noise, maybe, and not fall for lies. It's quite a reframing.
It really is. Such a powerful shift in thinking about it.
And it does raise an interesting question, maybe for you listening. How can something that seems like a challenge, a difficulty, actually turn into a source of real strength? Or a unique, focused perspective?
That's definitely worth thinking about.
Yeah, because that intense focus, which can be part of Asperger's, seems to have allowed her to just zero in on the science, the facts, and not get sidetracked by, social stuff or wanting to please people. It gave her credibility, perhaps.
Makes sense. Okay, so fast forward a bit. August 2018. Now she's 15. And this is where it really kicks off, right?
This is the pivotal moment.
She decides to skip school. And she makes this sign. Skolstrike for climate. School strike for climate.
That's the one, in Swedish.
And she just sits outside the Swedish parliament, alone at first.
Completely alone initially. Imagine that. The sheer sort of nerve it must have taken for one person, a teenager, to just act like that on her own, purely driven by her conviction. And the sources say, the first few days, not much happened.
Right.
People walked by. Maybe some even laughed, apparently. But then, day 4, someone took a photo.
And that one photo
started to change things. It got shared.
And suddenly, this lone girl with the sign, it just catches fire. Within weeks, other students in Europe are doing the same.
Weeks, and then within months, you have the start of the Fridays for Future movement.
Wow.
And within a year, literally millions of young people across the globe are involved. The speed is just staggering.
It really is breathtaking.
And what's so significant there is that speed, that scale. It makes you ask, what was it exactly? What do you think resonated so powerfully, especially with young people? Was it the message itself, her age, or just seeing one person, taking that stand?
Maybe all of it. It felt so authentic, unfiltered. Which leads to the next bit, right? 2019, she gets invited to the UN Climate Action Summit.
Yes. And importantly, the sources stress this. She didn't have a big PR team, no celebrity backing, nothing like that.
No campaign manager?
No. Just her. And she called her truth. Just her voice, basically, facing world leaders.
Incredible.
And that speech she gave. Wow. So direct, unflinching, looking right at them and saying, you have stolen my dreams and my childhood with your empty words. How dare you?
It's that line. How dare you? Chills.
Yeah. And the reaction in the room apparently was all over the place. Some applause, yes, but also eye-rolling, even some mockery.
Really?
According to the accounts, yes. But nobody could ignore it. It landed. It made people uncomfortable, maybe, but they heard it.
So this young person, speaking truth to power, as they say.
Oh, yes.
So directly, it's powerful stuff. But that kind of spotlight, it brings backlash too, doesn't it?
Oh, inevitably, yes. As she got more visible, the resistance ramped up big time.
What kind of things?
Well, the sources mention world leaders, media figures, criticizing her personally, calling her a puppet, saying she was being manipulated.
Right, I remember that.
Saying she was too young, didn't understand, or even cruelly bringing up her diagnoses, saying she was mentally ill, should just go back to school. Really intense personal attacks.
That's rough, especially for someone so young.
Yeah.
How did she handle that? The sources mention her response was quite consistent.
It was, and what's fascinating, really, is she didn't fight insults with more insults. No, she consistently came back to the science, the data, the facts. She'd say, don't listen to me, listen to the scientists, and she walked the talk, too.
How so?
Famously refusing to fly because of the carbon footprint, taking that zero-emissions sailboat across the Atlantic.
Oh, yeah, I remember that journey.
Right, and turning down awards, sponsorships, keeping the focus purely on the message, not on herself.
Always bringing it back to the core issue. Listen to the scientists. So looking back at this early part of her journey, what are the big takeaways, the main lessons we can maybe pull out?
Well, the sources really highlight a few core lessons. The first one is huge, I think. You don't need permission to make a difference. Greta didn't wait for anyone to tell her it was okay. She just saw something wrong and did something. It really speaks to, individual power. You don't have to wait for the authorities.
That's so key. Don't wait for an invitation to the party. Just start dancing. Okay, what's lesson 2?
Lesson 2. Your weakness might be your greatest strength. We talked about her Asperger's. What initially caused her pain, that intense focus, she channeled it. It let her see the climate issue with this, piercing clarity maybe others miss.
Right, that focus helped her cut through the distractions.
Exactly. It became part of her credibility, that unwavering focus on the science.
A really profound idea, turning a challenge into an asset. Lesson 3.
Lesson 3. Age does not define impact. Simple as that. She was 15, no platform, no mind, nothing. Yet she shook governments, mobilized millions. It just shows your age, young or old, doesn't determine the distance you can make.
Absolutely critical point. And the last one.
The last core lesson mentioned is pain can become purpose. She took that deep worry, that anxiety, maybe even depression about the climate crisis, and turned it into fuel, into this driving mission. It shows how even really difficult feelings can actually motivate powerful action.
Amazing. Okay, you mentioned we should touch on a couple of key English words that come up here.
Yes, good idea. Just quickly, the first word is strike. S-T-R-I-K-E, like Greta went on a school strike.
Right.
A strike basically means stopping an activity, usually work, but here it was school as a way to protest something, to show you disagree or demand change. Got that? Strike.
Strike. Stop doing something to protest. Makes sense. And the other word?
The other one is crisis. Yeah. C-R-I-S-I. Crisis, like the climate crisis.
Okay.
A crisis is a really serious, urgent problem, a time of intense difficulty or danger that needs immediate attention. Crisis.
Perfect. Strike and crisis. And I love that quote they pulled out, too. Speak even if your voice shakes. Powerful stuff.
Isn't it such courage?
Now, you mentioned there was a bit of debate around her methods, some disagreement.
Yes, worth touching on. Some critics felt Greta used fear too much in her messaging. And it sparks an interesting question for you listening. Is using fear, is it a bad tactic when talking about big problems? Or is it sometimes necessary, maybe, to actually wake people up? What do you think?
That is a tricky one. Because, too much fear, it can paralyze people, right? Make them feel hopeless, like there's nothing they can do, so they just switch off.
Right. It can backfire.
But then again, Greta herself said she wanted people to panic. She felt that level of urgency was missing, and maybe a bit of panic was needed to actually get things moving.
Exactly. Her argument was that the situation was urgent, like your house being on fire, and you should feel some panic to act appropriately.
So it's a fine line, isn't it? Motivating urgent action versus just scaring people into inaction.
It's a really crucial balance, especially in communication about risk. How do you convey the seriousness without overwhelming people? Fear can grab attention, for sure, but then you need to offer pathways for action, a sense of hope, perhaps.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, loads to think about there. So as we kind of wrap up this deep dive on Greta's early story, what's the main thing you hope people take away?
I think it comes back to that core idea highlighted in the sources and just embodied by her actions. You are never too small to make a difference, really. Your actions count.
They do, absolutely. And maybe that's the call to action for everyone listening. Just do one small thing for the planet today.
Yeah.
Maybe walk or bike somewhere you'd usually drive. Try one meal without meat. Or even just, talk to someone about climate change. Share what you learned. Every little action adds up.
Definitely. And maybe that leads to a final thought, a question for you to ponder. What's one thing you care deeply about? It doesn't have to be climate change, any issue. And then what's one tiny initial step you could take, maybe even today, to act on that concern? Good question to leave us with.
Just something to think about.
Well, thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive on Empower Your English. We really hope Greta's story gave you some inspiration and maybe some things to think about.
Hope so too.
We'll be back soon with another exploration. Until then, goodbye, take care, and keep learning. Bye, everyone.